Everybody get up off your seats and start the cheer. EDF! Earth Defense Force! But maybe not the Earth Defense Force you were expecting. From 1991 on the Super Nintendo, this is Earth Defense Force, with no relation to Earth Defense Force 2017 or Earth Defense Force Insect Armageddon. This is a side-scrolling spaceship shooter, where you are defending Earth with a defense force, consisting of you and a spaceship with unlimited ammo. Sounds fun, and it is. This game was released in '92 in the West and has a titling inconsistency. It says Super EDF on the game menu, but Earth Defense Force on the game itself. Whatever. EDF! EDF! What makes this game neat is that you start off by selecting a weapon, and you can choose from several, most of which are completely useless. It took me a few tries to figure out which weapons I really enjoyed. You level them up as you play through the game, and you can switch your weapons per level. Here's a variety of odd weapons, everything from grenade to atomic and slow-moving laser beams, which are all fairly useless on levels where enemies attack you from behind. If you've spent any time playing the Thunder Force series of games, you know that Hunter is the best weapon for clearing out waves of enemies. In Earth Defense Force, that same weapon is known as homing, but it's the weakest weapon in the game, so there's a bit of trade-off, but on the other hand, you can also shoot enemies above you and behind you and concentrate on moving and dodging. As you power up the homing weapon, it does become quite powerful later in the game. But it kind of sucks against end bosses when it takes a half hour to kill them. But the end bosses aren't very difficult either. In fact, the whole game is fairly average and not that challenging compared to some other heavy-duty shooters. The game reminds me a lot of Aeroflash or Air Buster on the Sega Genesis. It's a fairly average shooter, and the weapon system keeps it interesting because that mixes up how you can play through the game. Unlike some shmups, there's no one specific way that you have to play through the game. Choosing the right weapon makes it easier, but if you memorize the enemy patterns, you could also try something completely different. I preferred the homing weapon, especially when it's powered up, but the super laser was also effective. It locks onto enemies and works similar to the homing weapon, except it fires extremely slowly. A laser that fires slowly, imagine that. You don't have lives in the game or extra ships, you have shields, which sort of act like lives. If you lose 3 shields, you're done. But you can also continue, and when you continue, you keep your weapon power up. So you can pick up the game and essentially continue from the strength at which you were previously playing. I made some sloppy mistakes while recording this level, so I'll just continue for the review. In general, the game isn't overly challenging, but it's also not ridiculously easy once you get to some of the later levels either. It's fairly well balanced and a decent 16-bit shooter on the Super Nintendo. It's got that smooth, easy listening Super Nintendo style music. The visual presentation is nothing elaborate but still easy on the eyes, and it's a fun shooter for those who enjoy blowing up things with spaceships. With the funky bass riff in the background for the robotic space shrimp. EDF! I'm using the super laser here, so I'm going to throw this space shrimp on the Barbie. One bad joke per review is required. I like the music in this level, and this is where things start to get a bit tricky, but an upgraded homing weapon will take care of most of these enemies. Next time I went through this one with no problem. If you're still collecting games for your Super Nintendo, which you should be, Earth Defense Force is one that you should have on your list if you dig spaceship shooters. So, a big thanks to our friend Frank in California for sending this game to the show. I always enjoy blowing up spaceships while shouting things like, "Do you like death? Then die!" It's Earth Defense Force.